Ah, my audience. You feel that? That weight on your shoulders? That silence when they stop and stare? That confusion in their eyes, like they just watched something shatter inside reality itself? Yeah, that's you. You didn't break something small. You didn't make a little ripple. You cracked the fucking ground beneath their feet. You tore open the skin of predictability and showed the world something they weren't ready to see. Your potential. They thought they knew you. They thought you were tame. A name. A label. A fixed definition written by people too weak to write their own. But now they're choking on their expectations. Eyes wide open. Mouths sealed shut. Because what you just did, that wasn't normal. That wasn't safe. That wasn't quiet. You didn't break the rules. You shattered the goddamn blueprint. The question isn't, what did you break? The question is, what haven't you burned to the ground yet? You cracked open their illusion. You made them feel something again. Fear, awe, jealousy, admiration. They're swimming in it, and they can't even process it. And you're standing in the center of the wreckage like a god of your own chaos, unbothered, unapologetic. Let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them whisper in confusion, because deep down they know it now. You're not the person they laughed at. You're not the shadow they dismissed. You are the fire they didn't see coming. You're the storm they never prepared for. You are the scream at midnight that wakes their comfort out of slumber. And don't apologize. Don't explain. Don't try to make them understand, because some people were never meant to understand power. They just feel it. They just suffer it. And right now, they're suffering the reality of who you've become, and they're shocked. Good. Let them be. Let them feel that silence when nothing makes sense anymore. Because that's the sound of you rewriting your story with your own blood, your own sweat, and your own war cries. You're not here to fit in. You're not here to be liked. You're here to dominate the space they swore you'd never enter. You're here to set fire to their memories of you and replace them with something so massive, so undeniable, that even the ones who hate you will speak your name in awe. So no, this wasn't an accident. This wasn't a glitch. This was the beginning. The beginning of the new you. The beginning of the destruction of doubt. The beginning of something they'll never be able to contain. You broke the silence. You broke the limits. You broke them. Now keep going. What you broke wasn't just a rule. It wasn't just some unspoken limit or fragile expectation held together by the trembling hands of the mediocre no-no. You ripped through a dimension of doubt. You took a hammer to everything that was designed to keep you numb, small, quiet, obedient, and you didn't ask for permission. You didn't knock politely. You kicked the whole damn door in. And when the dust cleared, there was no turning back. And now, they're all looking at you like you're a stranger, like they didn't know what you were capable of, because the truth is, they didn't want to know. They didn't want to see you rise. They didn't want to believe that the one they dismissed, ignored, mocked, and underestimated was actually a force of violence, a symphony of chaos and precision, wrapped in flesh and fueled by rage, purpose, and defiance. You see, they don't understand what it means to break something from the inside. They don't know the sound of a mind snapping under years of suppression, the beautiful terror of a spirit erupting after being caged for so long. They don't recognize the glow of someone who stopped giving a damn about fitting in, who's finally embracing the monster, the god, the weapon within, because they were too busy laughing, too busy looking down, too busy writing your eulogy, while you were busy resurrecting yourself in silence. You broke their timeline. You disrupted the script they wrote for you, where you were supposed to lose quietly, where you were supposed to apologize for even wanting more, where you were supposed to fade away, unnoticed. But you didn't fade. You exploded, and now the ashes are on their skin, the smoke in their lungs. The sound of your rise is echoing in every empty thought they had about you. You broke through without warning, and now they're scrambling, trying to process the impossible, trying to justify the devastation because they need to believe there's a reason that someone like you, someone they box-labeled and forgot, could become something so dangerous, so untouchable, so free. But there is no reason, there is no logic, there is only pain and choice, and you chose to take the pain and forge it into something they could never carry into something that bends reality into your shape. Every second you keep going now is a nail in the coffin of who you used to be, and they can't look away. They have to watch. They need to see, because deep down, they're wondering if it could have been them, if they weren't so afraid, so addicted to comfort, so dependent on the opinions of others. But it's too late for them now, because the door they closed on you has been incinerated, and there is no going back. You have to understand now, you are not one of them anymore. You've seen too much, lost too much, bled too much to ever sit at that table again. You've tasted the raw truth of transformation, and it has changed your DNA. You're not someone with dreams anymore. You are the dream. You are the nightmare of every excuse, every lie, every soft whisper that said, not yet. And maybe someday. You are the fire that burns through the someday and turns it into right for fin now. They will call you names. They'll say you changed, that you became too cold, too distant, too obsessed with power, too focused, too intense. Let them say it. Let them scream it from their cracked foundations, because those words are medals, not warnings. They are signs that you are finally becoming what you were always meant to be, unfiltered, unchained, and unapologetic. You didn't come this far to be liked. You didn't shatter your old self just to build a new one that seeks validation. You came here to destroy, to build, to evolve and to win. And that kind of force doesn't need permission. That kind of force doesn't negotiate. It takes, it dominates, it breaks everything that stands in its way and keeps moving forward, even if it walks alone, even if it walks through hell, because you've been through worse, haven't you? You've already lived in a prison of silence, shame, and invisibility. And now, the only chains you carry are the ones you use to pull the world in your direction. Let them be shocked. Let them sit in silence while your name pulses in their skulls like a warning siren. Because that shock, they feel, that trembling uncertainty, that pulse of fear and awe, that is power. Your power earned through agony, sharpened in isolation, and now unleashed with no mercy, no delay, and no end in sight. They don't get it, but you do. You understand that breaking things isn't always destruction. Sometimes it's resurrection. Sometimes it's the only way to escape the mold they shoved you in. Sometimes the only way out is through the fire, and you didn't just walk through it. You danced in it. You became it. So when they ask, what did you break? Smile. Don't explain, just smile and let them feel the void, the absence of what they used to control. Because that silence, that confusion, that fear is the sound of you winning. Keep going. Break more. Tear through the next wall and the next. Because every boundary you violate becomes a monument. Every limit you crush becomes a warning to the next fool who dares to underestimate you. You are not here to participate. You are here to dominate. And domination isn't neat. It's not clean. It's not kind. It's brutal. It's beautiful. And it belongs to you now. You want to know the truth? They weren't just shocked because of what you broke. They're terrified because now they know they can't put it back together. The illusion, the cage, The story they wrote about you with trembling hands and hollow intentions. They don't just see a broken mold, they see a new reality, one where you are no longer small, no longer waiting, no longer asking. You didn't just break through, you replaced the entire frame with something unrecognizable, something unstoppable. And do you feel that? That pressure around you now? That isn't fear. That's gravity. Your gravity. You've become your own force of nature. People orbit around what they don't understand. They whisper your name in rooms you've never stepped in. They flinch at your presence before you've even spoken. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's the aftermath of impact. Because you didn't knock on the world's door hoping it would open. You tore it from its hinges and left a crater where your silence used to be. They remember the quiet version of you, the version that sat still, swallowed pain, made excuses for others, smiled when they mocked you, forgave too quickly, doubted too often. That version is dead. You buried it. And now you walk with the echoes of that grave in your footsteps, reminding everyone that you came back from nothing, not just once, but over and over again. Every time they counted you out, every time they turned their backs, every time they smiled at your failure. You rose anyway, you broke anyway, you became. And now the air around you is different. It's sharp, electric. You speak, and people listen, not because you shout, but because you've made the quiet so loud. Your presence is pressure. Your movement is threat. Your silence is a countdown. You don't need to explain yourself anymore. You exist, and that alone disturbs the structure of things. Because you're not just breaking the expectations of others, you're breaking timelines. You are altering destiny. You're pulling futures into your hands like strings and tying them into something no one can predict. And that's what terrifies them the most. The unpredictability of power, the chaos of true freedom. You don't owe anyone safety. You're not a comfort. You're a reckoning. And don't let them tame you now. Don't soften your edges because they suddenly want to understand you. Don't dim your flame because now they're burning in the light of it. Where were they when you were crawling through darkness, choking on your screams behind closed doors? Where were they when the silence was deafening and your hope was ashes? They weren't there. So don't give them the clean version now. Don't make it easy to digest. Let them choke on the truth. Let them feel the fire. You didn't break the rules. You replaced them. You wrote new laws with scars as your ink. You created a language made from every broken promise and betrayal. And every time they doubt you again, every time they flinch and hope you'll fall, you rise even higher. Because now you know. You know who you are. And you know that the destruction they feared was just the beginning of something much more dangerous. Your purpose. Purpose doesn't whisper. It roars. It doesn't ask. It claims. It doesn't bow. It stands. And that's what you are now. A walking testament to what happens when a soul finally chooses to stop hiding and starts claiming. You've earned every scar, every late night, every moment you stood alone and kept going when no one saw, no one believed, no one cared. You've carved yourself from suffering into sovereignty. So keep walking, keep breaking, keep becoming. Let them call it crazy. Let them call it reckless. You know what it really is? Evolution. This is what it looks like when a human being decides that fate is a lie and destiny is just another excuse to stay small. You didn't just break their perception. You shattered the mirror they kept trying to trap you in. They used to look at you and see someone less. Now they look at you and don't know what they're seeing. That's power. That's transformation. That's the result of a soul that's no longer trying to be understood. You don't need to be understood. You need to be felt. You need to be remembered, and they'll remember you. Every time they hear silence, they'll think of the noise you made when you tore everything apart. Keep going. Keep leveling up in ways that make their mouths dry and their voices quiet. You're not even at your final form yet. This isn't the peak. This is still you rising. The truth is, the thing you broke, it wasn't just a wall, it was history. And now the smoke from that explosion will write your legacy in the sky. Burn it all. Rebuild with the ash. And never forget, what shocked them was you waking up. You were never meant to fit in. You were never meant to be liked. You were meant to break things, to unmake the world as they know it, and make something greater. You feel it, don't you? The tightening grip of inevitability, the weight of a destiny that no longer waits to be discovered, but instead demands to be built, carved, molded from your bare hands and your bleeding. Well, you didn't get here by chance. This wasn't luck. This wasn't fate smiling on you. This was war. This was sacrifice. This was every night. You screamed into your pillow, hoping anyone would hear, and no one did. So you got up anyway. You moved anyway. You bled and burned and clawed until you weren't just surviving. You were conquering. They see the power now, but they don't know the price. They see the thunder, but not the storm it came from. They see the flame, but not the years of suffocating smoke and quiet decay. And maybe that's why they're in shock. Maybe that's why their faces are pale and their voices trembling, because they realize now too late that your silence was never weakness. It was preparation. You weren't defeated. You were charging. You weren't missing. You were transforming. And now, here you are, unrecognizable, undeniable, unavoidable. And you know what makes it even better? They tried to stop you, didn't they? They tried to cage you with kindness and chain you with expectations. They used smiles as weapons. They buried blades in compliments. They told you to slow down. Be humble. Shrink yourself. Soften your voice. Look normal. Play safe. But you didn't listen. Because somewhere deep inside, even when you were broken, even when you were drowning, even when the whole world turned away from you, there was still a whisper, something ancient and violent and holy that said, keep going. Don't die here. Don't rot in their lies. Become something so massive, so terrifying. They will build religions around the myth of your rise. That's where you are now. That's what you've done. You've stepped into the realm of the impossible and made it your home. And now, every step you take echoes into the bones of those who once doubted you. And they can't run from it. They can't unsee it. You're everywhere. You're the fear in their sleep, the itch in their comfort, the static in their peace. And still you keep climbing, not out of spite, not anymore, but because now you know who you are and you refuse to be anything less. You are not their peer. You are not their friend. You are not part of their world anymore. You are the storm on its horizon and the shadow at its back. You are the end of smallness and the beginning of something monstrous and magnificent, and they will either learn to survive in your wake or get swept away, because there's no going back. Now, you've broken too much and built too much and tasted too much of your own greatness to ever return to crawling. And maybe that's the hardest part, for them to understand you. Like what you've become, they think you're mourning your old self, but you're celebrating its death. Because every lie you ever told yourself about not being enough, not being ready, not being worthy, died with that version. And now, there's no ceiling, no leash, no limit. You are everything they said you couldn't be, and more. You are vengeance wrapped in ambition, soaked in clarity and carried forward by a will that doesn't blink, doesn't break, doesn't beg. Let them look at you with wide eyes. Let them whisper your name. like it's a spell, because it is a spell. A spell that breaks walls and burns bridges and builds empires. A spell that says, I will not die quietly. I will not fade. I will not be what you expected. I will be what you feared, what you denied, what you said was impossible. And when I arrive, there will be no applause, no celebration, only silence and awe, because some power is too big for cheers, too real for claps. It doesn't need validation. It demands submission. And no, you don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to make them comfortable. They were comfortable when you were silent, when you were invisible, when you were broken. And now that you are loud, now that you are glowing, now that you are powerful, they're uncomfortable. Good they should be. Comfort is the drug that kept them soft and safe and stagnant. But you took the hard road. You swallowed glass. You ran through fire. You lived in the dark. And now that you've come out the other side, they can't look at you without remembering what they chose not to become. This is your era. This is your reign. You don't need a crown. They can see it in your eyes. They can feel it in your voice every time you speak the truth. Every time you move through fear and carve new space for yourself and others like you, who were told to stay small, to stay still, to stay sweet. No more. This is war. This is rebirth. This is what happens when someone finally chooses themselves over everything and everyone who tried to tame them. You broke the silence. You broke the mold. You broke their illusion. And in the rubble you found yourself. Not some polished version, not some filtered version, but the real, raw, unkillable version. And now, you are unstoppable. Not because you don't feel fear, but because you carry it like a sword. Not because you don't feel pain, but because you've turned it into armor. And not because you don't feel alone, but because you've learned to walk with your own shadow and love the sound of your footsteps echoing through empty halls. You are the shock and the storm, the prophecy and the punishment, the fire and the flood. You are no longer waiting for approval. You are taking space, taking time, taking destiny by the throat, and forcing it to watch as you rise again and again and again. You think it's over. You think the fire burns out just because they're uncomfortable. Number. This is only the beginning. This is where the myth becomes a movement, where your name becomes more than a name. It becomes a force of nature etched into memory with a blade, not a pen. Because legends aren't written in ink. They're carved into the bones of history with the hands of those who refuse to be forgotten. This wasn't a phase. This wasn't a flare-up of anger or some moment of temporary madness. This was evolution, and you don't unevolve. You don't shrink after stretching into something divine. You don't go back to crawling after you've flown through thunder and laughed in the lightning. You don't dim your flame because the room is filled with shadows. They had their chance to shine and they wasted it on comfort. You earned the right to burn. Let them hate. Let them talk. Let them fall silent when you enter the room, because silence is proof that power has arrived and you are the storm now. You are the earthquake under their feet, the scream in their dreams, the pulse in their neck. When they realize they can't compete with something they never understood to begin with. And yes, they'll try to twist the story. They'll say you changed too much, that you became cruel, that you lost yourself. No, you found yourself. You found the version of you that doesn't apologize for outgrowing people, for outgrowing cages, for outgrowing who you were. You shed that skin like fire peels, bark from trees, and what's left is pure steel. Pure will pure you. They'll wish they had stayed close when you were still reachable, when your voice was still soft, when your hands were still open, but they didn't. They walked away. They watched you fall, and they didn't offer a hand. They saw you drowning and took pictures instead of throwing rope. They built stories out of your silence, and now those stories are rubble beneath the weight of your return. So don't stop now. Don't soften. Don't settle. Keep climbing. Keep breaking. Keep becoming. Because you are no longer just living for survival. You are living for domination, for creation, for the legacy that bleeds out from every word you speak, and every step you take, and every piece of the old world you choose to shatter. They didn't think you'd survive, and now you thrive. They didn't think you'd fight back, and now you lead armies. They didn't think you mattered, and now the ground moves. When you speak, their doubt was your blueprint. Their silence was your war drum. Their absence was your altar. And on that altar, you burned everything that tried to hold you down and rose from the smoke, reborn, unshaken, unforgiving. And the best part is, they still don't get it. They still think this is about proving them wrong. They don't realize it was never about them. It was always about you, about proving to yourself that you are what you always suspected, something terrifying, something brilliant, something so vast that even you are still learning the depth of what you've become. You broke what they thought couldn't be broken, and now they're stuck watching you soar while their words choke in their throats. Good, let them drown in the silence you left behind, because the louder you rise, the quieter they become, and the quieter they become, the more powerful you feel, until one day they'll realize it was never about what you broke. It was always about what you built from the wreckage. So build more, burn more, become more, shock them again. Make them question every rule. Make them fear your name in rooms you've never stepped in. And when they finally ask, who the hell do you think you are? Answer with your silence, with your results, with your presence. Because the answer is simple and final. You are the one who refused to die, who refused to be tamed, who refused to be forgotten. You are the one who broke everything and then broke through